Hello guys, welcome to my channel. Thank you for stopping by. In this video, I'll be showing us how to make this Bubu dress, which has front pockets with ruffles and shoulder drawstring. I used about 3 yards of Ankara fabric to recreate mine. So if you are interested to see how I made it, why not keep watching and let's get into the video. My main fabric for this tutorial is an African print, which is 3 yards. From the style inspiration, the fabric has 2 patterns. Now, if you can't get a 2 pattern fabric, you can actually combine 2 different fabrics that match, okay? The other fabric here is organza. It will be used to create ruffles around the pocket, and all we need is less than ½ yard. Now, it doesn't have to be black, okay? Any color that matches your fabric will do just fine. Right now, I will fold my fabric into 4 as I will be cutting the front and the back piece together. Here, I have my fabric folded into 4. And I use my hip circumference divided by 4 plus extra 7 inches to fold this. Another way is to add your desired sleeve length to half of your shoulder measurements, since this is a cut together sleeve dress. At the top of my fabric, I will draw a straight line, which is the starting or the shoulder line. Next, I will measure the neckline. The width is 3 inches, while the depth for the back is 1 inch. For the front neck depth, it is 2.5 inches. The next thing to do is to mark half of your shoulder measurement. Whatever your shoulder measurement is, divide it into 2 and mark. And from that point, you will determine your sleeve length. Now, my desired sleeve length is 11 inches. And from that 11 inches, I'll take out some inches which will serve as band. So I will mark 7.5 inches here plus ½ inch sewing allowance, making 8 inches, and about 3.5 inches will serve as the band. So go ahead and determine your sleeve length. From where the sleeve length stops, I will come down by 1.5 inches to slope the shoulder. Then connect the points to the neck width this way. Next is to measure the sleeve opening. So from the shoulder slope, I will determine my sleeve opening, which is 8 inches plus ½ inch sewing allowance. I will mark 8.5 inches. Go ahead and determine how wide you want your sleeve opening to be. Now, I will take the round measurement. For my bust circumference, I will use where my sleeve opening stops as a guide. Here, instead of using my bust circumference, I will use my biggest round measurement, which is my hip. If your bust circumference happens to be your biggest round measurement, go ahead and use it, okay? So I divided that into 4. Then I will add extra inches, 2 inches as ease allowance and ½ inch sewing allowance. For your ease allowance, it can be more than 2 inches, depends on how free you want the dress on your body. The next thing to do is to determine my dress length. For my dress length, I'll place my tape on the starting line, then go down by 36 inches. That is how long I want my dress to be. And the remaining inches there will serve as the hem allowance. So go ahead and determine how long you want your dress. Now, for the measurements at the hem, I will use the same measurements I have here, which is 12.5 inches. Next, I will create a curve connecting these 2 lines. So from this point, I will come down by 1.5 inches, then connect the point with a curve. And at the shoulder, I will add 3/4 inch joining allowance instead of ½ inch joining allowance. And this is because a casing will be created for the drawstring, but I will advise you add 1 inch, okay? And this is all for the drafting. I will cut it out now. For the neckline, you cut out the back neckline first, then you separate the back and the front piece to cut out the front neckline. At the hem, I will notch the hem allowance, then separate these two to work on the front piece. On the front piece, we need to create a neck slit for easy wear since there is no zipper. So from the neck depth, I'll come down by 5 inches, then cut it open. So this is what your front neckline should look like, and this is what your back neckline should look like as well. The next thing to do is to cut out facing to turn the front neck slit. This is the piece for the facing. You can see it is on fold. I set the front piece on it, then I will trace out the shoulder, the neckline, as well as the slit, then cut out the shape I want it to have. For the back neckline, I won't use facing to turn it, but I will pipe it together with the front neckline. To stitch, I will place the right side of the facing on the right side of the main piece, and the facing won't turn the neckline, it will only turn the slit, and this is how I will stitch it. After stitching the neck slit, I also fold in the edges of the facing once and run a stitch round it so I will have a neat finishing. I will notch the V part of the neck slit, then turn the facing to the wrong side. After joining the shoulder, I will use hemming gum to hold this down. This is what the slit looks like at the right side. You can see how well it relaxes. The next thing to do is to join the shoulder. So I'll place the back piece on the front piece, right side facing, then go over to the sewing machine to stitch with the allowance I left for it while cutting. And this is how I will stitch it. I will turn the front facing to the back this way, then stitch it together. You can as well stitch it the normal way, okay? And I'll stitch the second shoulder the same way. If you stitch your shoulder the same way I did mine, this is what you are going to have. Now, I didn't join the shoulder completely, and this is because of the drawstring. The drawstrings goes into the band as well. So I will join the band to the sleeve first, and after joining the band to the sleeve, I will create the casing for the drawstring. Now for the band, I cut out 8 inches, which is 4 inches on fold, and after using half of an inch to join it to the sleeve, I'll be left with the 3.5 inches I wanted it to be. Notice how the band has a different pattern from the sleeve. This is because the sleeve of the style inspiration has 2 patterns as well. So I'll divide this band into 2, and then I'll join it to the sleeves separately. And after stitching the band, I will also join the remaining part of the shoulder. And this is what I have after adding the band and stitching the remaining part of the shoulder. I also open up the seam and iron it flat. The next thing to do is to create the casing and add the drawstrings. For the drawstrings, I cut out 4 pieces about 1 inch wide, fold in the edges and stitch it down. And for the length, it should be as long as you want it. The drawstrings did not start from the neckline, so from the hem, I will come up by 9 inches. That is where it will start from. Notice how tiny my drawstrings are. This is because the space for the casing won't be wide after stitching. That was why I advised that you should add 1 inch allowance. So the wideness of your casing should determine the wideness of your drawstrings so that there will be easy movement. To stitch, place 1 drawstring into the seam allowance, then go over to the sewing machine, fold in the edges and stitch it down. You do the same thing to the other side. And at this point where it starts from, you make sure to back stitch well so that when you pull on your drawstring, it won't remove. After stitching the edges of the seam allowance and creating casing for your drawstring, you will have 2 stitches at the right side. I did the same thing to the second shoulder, and this is what I have. The next thing to do is to work on the neckline. Remember I said I was going to pipe it, so I'll measure it round to know the length to cut out. And whatever measurements I get here, I will add extra 1 inch when cutting the piece for the piping. I cut out a straight piece using the measurements I got around the neckline plus extra 1 inch. You can also cut this out in a bias form, okay? And as for the width, it is 2 inches. I folded in ½ inch on both ends, gave it a good press, then folded it into 2 again. That was how I got this. To stitch, fold in the starting point by ½ inch, open it up, place the neckline in between and pin it round. When you get to the end of the neckline, cut off excess fabric in case you have any, but make sure to leave the ½ inch you are folding in. Place the neckline in between just like you've been doing and pin it down. Next thing is to go over to the sewing machine and stitch it round. This is what I have after stitching. I also gave it a good press. The next thing to do is to work on the pockets. From the shoulder, I will mark where I want it to start from, which is 18 inches. That's 2 inches from my waistline. I will mark the same thing at the other side. Then at that point from the center fold, I will mark 2 inches on both sides. Having done that, I will set this aside to work on the pockets. I already cut out the 2 pockets and the length is 9 inches while the width is 8 inches. The initial length was 10 inches and the initial width was 9 inches, but I used ½ inch to fold in the edges all round. Now let's set this aside and work on the organza for the ruffles. I cut out 2 pieces of the organza fabric, one for each pocket. The width is 4 inches, which is 2 inches on fold, and after stitching I'll be left with 1.5 inches. For the length, I measured round the pocket without the top part and I cut out double of that measurement. To stitch, we are going to pleat the organza fabric around the edges of the pocket. So double fold the edge of the organza fabric. You can as well stitch it down. Then make little pleats round the edges. You can as well gather these to create your ruffles, okay? And after making the little pleats around the edges of this first pocket, I'll do the same thing with the second pocket. This is what I have after making the ruffles around the edges. The next thing to do is to attach it to where we marked on our dress earlier. To attach the pocket, you have to open up your dress this way to make it easier. Then place each of the pockets to where you marked, arrange it well and pin it round. After pinning the pockets where necessary, the next thing to do is to go over to the sewing machine to stitch round. Here I have stitched the 2 pockets and this is what it looks like at the wrong side. The next thing to do is to close the side. So I place the 2 pieces back on each other. Then I'll go over to the sewing machine and close the side with the sewing allowance I left for it while cutting. After closing the side, I will also fold in the hem allowance to stitch. After closing the side, this is what I have. The dress is finally ready. I also fold in the hem allowance to stitch round. And this is all for the making of this dress. Thanks so much for watching. If you find this video helpful, please hit on the like button and share. If this is your first time of coming across my channel, thank you for stopping by. Please do not leave without subscribing and I'll see you in my next one.